So just to do some framing for what we're focusing on today, because AI is very broad, and there are many different types of AI systems. We're going to try to encourage you to think in a very narrow area for a certain kind of AI, which is the kind of AI that we think technology is moving toward at its most rapid pace. We think it is the most interesting, and it has the greatest number of ethical concerns. It is also the area which is the most undiscussed and for which there is the least amount of guidance. And so it is time for people to start thinking about this particular area in the development of AI. So we're not focused in thinking about conversational AI. We're not thinking of just simplistic chatbots that are commonly used in customer service programs, for example, which route people to provide and give particular kinds of information or to resolve billing. Yes, it's a use of complex conversation. Yes, it's a way in which individuals are interacted with, but that's not the level of interaction that we're focusing on for these conversations today. So we're also not focusing on task respondent AI. So thinking about ChatGPT and asking or giving a query and having an outcome or product produced in response to one's goals. There are many different types of AI systems which do that, and they serve needs, they serve purposes, they create products, and they do interact with users in some ways because we also ask other users to do tasks for us and to create products for us. So this does, again, mimic the kind of interaction that we're most interested in discussing, but that's still, again, too limited in its focus. So we're not also thinking about decision support AI. So there are some much more advanced versions of AI systems now, which are being used to support how human reasoners make decisions, to provide key information which is curated. And people are using the complex information, not just raw or brute information or not just a summary, as part of their decision-making processes. We're more interested in the kinds of AI in which they're more modeled on actual agent human user dynamics. And so there are some interesting models of AI systems, and there's one in particular, some of you have heard us talk about this already, where medical providers, for example, are even now using an AI system, calling it a promising adjunct. So it's being treated as a fellow agentic reasoner in a decision-making process with a collection of human agents. Now that's very different from just calling a chatbot and getting some information or resolving billing. And so that's a particular kind of AI system that we think is interesting. That's a particular kind and style of dynamic which goes far beyond some of these others. And that's really our focus today, is thinking about that kind of interaction and that sort of model. And so when we're talking about policy today, policy takes many forms, right? And so one of the things we want to encourage you to really lean into and think about is we're not just thinking of policy and guidance or limitations or restrictions at the governmental level, the federal level, or the state level. We're not just talking about law. Policy comes in many forms. So we're thinking about policy very broadly as any kind of guidance, any kind of set of proposals which shape and constrain choices that human users, designers, companies, and legislators might use and think about. So policy could be the sort of thing that we have in an institution at an educational level for what sorts of programs we might want to put in place for educational systems for engineers or computer science. What do we need to do for those educational systems at a single institution? What do we need to do for an educational system thinking about all engineers and engineering education nationwide as an emerging profession? Right? These are policies too, but they don't rise to the level of legislative policy on a state or federal level. So policy is broad, and we mean it to be broad in that sense because, of course, we in this room are not state and federal legislators, although the sort of work that we're doing will have profound impacts on developing models for what those other policies might look like. So we do encourage you to think about policy from the standpoint of your area of expertise, if you're an educator, what that might look like in classrooms, in curricula, at your institution, at other institutions, in your developing and emerging fields. If you're a researcher, what policy might look like to constrain the kind of work that's done in your lab, or might enhance or promote the work that's done in your lab? What policies might be put in place at particular companies, agencies, or organizations? So using the standpoint of your own experience, policy in that broader sense. All right. And so given this particular focus and the goal of thinking about policy from your standpoint or your area of expertise, we've also structured our speakers today to do an even deeper dive based on the readings. So we're going to be starting with our first speaker, who's going to provide insights from human-robotic interactions, because this kind of interaction that we're most interested in focusing on is not wholly new under the sun. It's been addressed, pursued, explored in human-robotic interactions for some time. And so there are some interesting insights that we can gain from looking at those literatures. Our second speaker is going to really be drilling down and focusing on issues of non-conscious processing and how those factors affect decision-making. And again, some of those materials were included in the background readings, but we're going to get a lot more detail from our speaker today. Our third speaker is going to be raising a variety of ethical complexities and really pushing some of the nuances of ethical concepts to make us go beyond some of the simpler assumptions that we tend to make about ethical issues and to really drive home the complexities so that whatever avenues we pursue for policy approaches, we've addressed some that are very sophisticated rather than just surface level. And then our fourth speaker is going to be providing some insights and models of some current guidance and guardrails at a variety of levels: state and federal legislation, various kinds of nonprofit legislation, particular ways of thinking about industry-wide collaborations and what those could look like for guidance and guardrails. So truly a plethora of models, again, designed to be the sort of thing which sparks creativity and brainstorming as we move forward in developing what policy might look like at a range of levels for this unique process. All right, so with that said, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to our opening speaker, Chinzu. If you want to go ahead and come, and Ethan will get you squared away.